Didn't matter.
Okay, so it's the north end. So they put the tiles in, which I love because that's what I do in my commercial buildings. I don't do rolled carpet. Because once that spot is stained, you can just rip it up. Put it
It's
away.
more practical. Yes.
This was an interesting week. Both buildings had a chiller break. Yes.
All right. Let's get this party started. So a few housekeeping notes. Thank you all for your time and attentiveness for the summer. And it has been enjoyable for me to host a course like this once again. And for the conversations that we've had and to bring this back around in our community and to honor the commitments that we've made here in the congregation to focus on conversations and striving to enhance our community of inclusivity, specifically within the LGBTQIA plus community. This is the last day of the series. A reminder that certainly all the classes that I led are available in perpetuity on our YouTube channel. So they're in the playlist for Christian education. You can always go back and rewatch them as you so desire. I have any of the handouts if you need any of them. I've emailed them to you, but you can always reach out to me if you want more. There's always more resources and information than what I provided. A whole battery full of resources that I did not provide y'all with or overwhelm y'all with. So if you're ever curious for more, let me know. I can certainly provide you with more. That being said, next Sunday after worship, I have set aside that Sunday as Emergency Preparedness Sunday. And it's not going to be a long session, but what I've asked folks is that right after worship, for about 20 minutes, I and Pastor John are going to take about 20 minutes and run through verbally some ideas about what we will do in the event of fire, tornado, and active shooter. We've never talked about those things ever in the almost 11 years that I've been here. And we want to make sure that we're clear and focused with that, with as many people from the congregation sitting in the pews as possible. And sure, I could make a little video and send it out to y'all. You wouldn't watch it. Sure, I could write it up and email it out to you. You wouldn't read it. But being there on a Sunday morning, I'll both record it and then I'll put it on YouTube and hopefully some people will watch it, but then you will also be there to hear it. And you'll also be oriented to the building where we are as we're talking about it in location. And if we need to make any adjustments based on that day and your feedback, then we'll make some adjustments. So please, as you're available, please, yeah.
Just a small comment on this. You never know when something like this can happen. I grew up next door to Sutherland Springs. I went to school with those people. And when that happened, it's devastating. So please come. Please, yeah, important.
Well, and none of you were here when this church had Lennis, Luis, when did y'all start? What year did y'all start worshiping with us?
14, and
We were there.
we were there for the
Shooting
that
that happened.
occurred. Started at the restaurant / bar and worked
Yeah.
in the church.
We did have a shooting where a man died. on the front porch of the sanctuary here. He left the bar right there. When the police cornered him on the front porch of the sanctuary where he died. Then he had an AR-15 and a small shotgun, and that's how I woke up Saturday morning. And the doors going into the fellowship hall had been blown out, and they don't clean up the mess. And so that, all this, that, and the other is, yes, it is horrible. And I have been to the church in Sutherland Springs, and I've gone into that sanctuary, and I've prayed there. And it's harrowing. All that being said is, we want to make sure that we're faithful to our community. So as you're available, please do. Then we are not doing class on the 25th or the 1st. Rally Day is our kickoff of the church school year. It's going to be on the 8th. And after worship is the Connections Fair. And that is a fair that will be here in the gym, and it focuses on all of kind of the internal ministries of the church. So big youth group kickoff day, Sunday school kickoff day. The class, and you're going to get a lot about it in the next couple of weeks, but I'm going to be teaching in the fall. It's a class called The After Party, and I will be leading it. I think I'm leading it all the way at least think through, God bless you, through mid-November maybe. And it is an exploration of Christianity beyond politics and after partisanship, after party, after your political party. And I figured that with the presidential election this fall, this is the best time to teach it or to lead it, to facilitate it. It is a curriculum, it is a book, and I think it's just a good time for us to do it. So that's officially going to start the Sunday after Rally Day. And so I will have flyer information, what's that and the other available to you in the weeks ahead.
The days that.
8th. Right. So that's just a few housekeeping information. We are also looking at adding a second adult Christian education class in case you don't want to focus in on that. And we may have a second alternative in room 105, which will be right next door to us. Or ongoing mission opportunities that happen on Sunday, small mission opportunities that happen on Sunday mornings during this time as well. So that's it for housekeeping stuff. Today, we're going to hone in on Cedar Park Leander, and then just have some time for a debrief, and then Bob's your uncle. So let us open with prayer. I'm going to put Tesla on the spot. And if you look at bullet point for 2 is our opening prayer. And if you would lead us in our opening prayer, Tesla.
Almighty God, we ask for your wisdom and guidance as we embark on this journey of learning and reflection. Illuminate our minds and soften our hearts so that we may fully grasp the importance of inclusivity in our faith and practice. Lead us to be a church that truly reflects your love and justice. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So on page 3, nope, that's not right. Page 4 is our covenants of presence. And starting with Luis and Linus, if you'll just begin reading that, and then when we come back in here, Tesla, you'll do number 3. We're just reading the bold And then we'll go to Roxanne and come around. Louise, if you'll read number 1.
Be fully present, extending and presuming welcome.
Listen generously.
Author your story.
We come as equals.
It is never share or die.
No fixing.
Suspend judgment.
Turn to wonder.
Hold what is offered with care.
Be mindful and respectful of time.
Practice confidentiality care.
Welcome discomfort in dislocation.
Love the questions themselves.
Believe that it is possible for us to emerge from our time together surprised and less burdened than when we came.
Good, thank you. Moving back to page 2, number 4 is what is your name? And Louise, we're going to go back to you. That same order. God bless you. Number 4, what is your name? And focusing in on love the questions themselves. What is the funniest question that you've been asked recently? Like, why do we park on driveways and drive on parkways? I know it's silly. That may be a hard one to, and it's a tough one out of the gate, but
I would love to know the answer to that question.
I don't know. It didn't have to be as silly or quirky as that, but what's a silly? Come on in, Mercy.
You know, we were sitting over there, we forgot that we were supposed to meet.
Oh, yes.
So there are like 4 people.
Oh, did you tell them we're over here?
Yes.
Okay.
So I hope they.
We're gonna need more chairs.
Yeah, they are on their way.
Hang on a second, Louise. We got more people coming in.
Okay. Hey, that's a hard question.
Okay, well, we'll start with Lennis. We'll do you last.
Sunflowers.
I know, this is sunflower.
The first,
Yes,
you're told that you didn't leave my voicemail and I didn't show you. I'm so sorry. I didn't exactly need to tell you about this meeting.
I know, I found out, I called Judy and she told me.
Yeah, Judy texted me. But
Yeah, it's tomorrow, isn't it?
yes, tomorrow.
All right, Lennis, you got one?
Yeah, I do, but it's not a recent one, but it goes back a couple of years. If you remember Ed LaBelle, he was a former member of the church and a member of Emmaus, our Emmaus group that we'd meet together. One day, he looked at me and says, "Geez, do you shave your eyebrows?" And he was serious.
That's a weird question.
And you
It is a weird question,
You do?
You don't have to answer that.
and I don't.
No,
You want it?
if you don't want, but you don't get
All right,
water.
Tesla, you got
Okay.
one?
I don't think there's any.
I do have one. It's more of a response to a question that I asked like
Okay.
yesterday. So my mom was talking to me about one of my best friends, and his name's Cruz. And we were talking, she was like, I didn't really expect his name to be Cruz. And I asked her, what did you expect his name to be? And there's a whole story behind this. But she said, I don't know, like Senor Frog or something. And apparently that's the bar, the name of the bar that her and Cruz's mother met. Oh, and they had this ongoing joke that they would name him after the bar, or name their first kid after the bar. And so I think it was more of like a funny story, I guess.
Okay,
but
that's good.
I like that.
Okay, Roxanne?
I'm Roxanne and Julie Albrecht and I were talking the other day and she was telling the story about some visitors from Japan and we were talking about beef. And she was saying, ask the Japanese people, do you raise beef? And they were understanding, do you raise? And how would you say it? Because we raise children, we raise animals, how would you say?
Oh,
Grow.
Steve knows the answer to that.
Grow?
okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, we were just sitting, our talking about in the.
I do.
My very quick, here's when you was.
Yeah, you already.
I think it's going on. I may have to go with Phoenix. I don't know that I've got a real good answer to this particular question. One that kind of comes to mind a number of years back was being in the doctor's office for a colonoscopy. The first kind of words out of his mouth is, "Where do you buy your boots?" I really like my boots.
That, okay, all right, that's good. All right. We
Well,
got
mine
go ahead, Diane.
goes back to when I was in college, and on Sunday nights, the dorms didn't serve food, and my parents lived in town, so my roommate and I would go over to my parents and then drive back to our room in the dorm. And there were trains in Lafayette I went to Purdue, and so it was not unusual to get stopped on your way back to the train. Well, we had hours back then. This is back in the dark ages. And you know, you had to be in by a certain time. And we missed it, so we had to go in the back entrance, and we were questioned as to why we were late. We were probably 5 minutes late or something. And we said, well, we hit a train, and the lady goes, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And we're like, yeah. She said, "But you hit a train? Did it total the car?" No, we just got stopped and couldn't drive on because the train came.
Good, mercy. You can come back. We'll come back to you. You walked in late. Gloria.
Okay, well, I always eat a lot and I can taste just about everything. But I was with my sister and she said, "Since when you started being so picky about food?"
Right. All right. I watched, I've been watching a lot of stand-up comedians lately and like classic stand-up comedians. And so I watched 3 concerts by George Carlin, who is one of the world's greatest wordsmiths. And one of the ones that just stands out is he was honing in on the wordplay of, about airplanes. He says, why is it pre-boarding? You're either boarding, but what is pre-boarding? You're boarding. And, why do we get, now we're getting on the plane. I'm not getting on the plane, I'm getting in the plane. And so, yeah. Right.
My question was kind of strange. My coworker is one of these people that knows everything about everything and is the utmost expert about everything. So they asked me, well, didn't you have air-conditioned suits when you were a performer at Disneyland? So the answer to that question is no, they don't have that. And so then he proceeded to argue with me, telling that I was lying because his friend said that they did, but yet I'm the one that wore it every day. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Last week was a week of frustration, and I had many frustrating questions asked me by board members who should know better. Like, what year did Draga Senior start? When it's on our website, like 50,000 places, it's in their board packet, it's in their board orientation. We talked about in 2 years, we're gonna have a 40th anniversary, and they're asking me in an email that is urgent. I need to know now when Draga Senior started.
Okay.
So this wasn't said to me directly, but around me. I went to a stay with a friend who is from South Korea. And we have a really sweet friend who was with us, and we got up in the morning. We all kind of did like a sleepover girls' night, did like mani pedis. It was cute. And then we woke up the next morning, and my friend started to make breakfast food, Korean breakfast food. And my other friend stood up and said, "You eat Korean food for breakfast too?" Like, wait a second, doesn't everybody eat eggs and like, yeah, I'm gonna have this kimchi. Like that's what's up. That was pretty funny. I didn't get asked to eat, but.
Okay. Luis, do you want us to come back or do you want to stay past? She gonna stay past. Okay, all right, Raven.
I don't think I have any other than like
You want some chocolate, really?
Try it, Mercy.
Okay, the funniest question that I had, maybe just now, as I was in the there eating cake and somebody saw that I don't eat the cream, I took it out and oh, that's the beauty of it. And I said, yeah, it's too sweet.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so this was kind of funny / sad. But I don't normally react to political posts. But someone just happened to say, didn't know who the person was, but about this feed is on. What do you think of him? And I just said, love her. And so some lady posted, Kathy Clemens, I'm really gonna be praying for you. And I'm like, I always appreciate her. And then the man said, what do you think? You are done, and I forgot the other word it was first thing.
It's probably good you forgot.
A bit ago, and that it was really, you are done and blindside or done at something. Anyway, that's all. It is what it is, and I'm fine.
I don't think you're done.
I don't see your time,
Yeah.
And I will also pray for you.
Well, I responded, but in a very respectful way.
Yeah, just say,
Classy.
bless your heart.
I did respond after that.
Anyway, well, all right. So, what I wanted to do today was talk a little bit now. We've been over the course of the summer, we started off with the first third of the summer honing in on unclobbering the clobber passages from the Bible, right? And unpacking them. Then we pivoted to the middle portion of the summer where we began looking internally at the movement of one, what are these letters that make up LGBTQIA plus? And then looking at denominationally, what has been the movement within our denomination and the history of homosexuality within our polity, our governance, and where are we now, as well as taking a look more locally within our congregation, within and what has been the history of our congregation and where we are now. We talked about youth ministry and Kingdom Camp a couple of weeks ago. And then last week, we explored a little bit of laboratory with the idea of how do we begin putting all of these pieces into play and in our own lives and our discipleship and whatnot. And now we kind of pivot outwards and looking out into the community of Cedar Park and Leander, kind of our primary mission field where we are planted. And this is sort of the culmination of really kind of the last two and a half years of concentrated research and geographic narrative qualitative study of my own of our mission field that I just shared with current elder at the table. I don't have any current serving elders at the table that I just shared. You were there. You weren't there in May, in January. That I just shared with the session in January. And by way of doing so, proposed to them a significant change to my job description that that is taking effect essentially this month, that I'm going to be unpacking before y'all now. So let's talk about that. Part of what my question was over these last couple of years is where really is Hope Presbyterian Church's mission field? In 1975, when this church was planted, let's roll back. We got to roll back history. 100 years ago, city of Austin was a red-lined city. Y'all familiar with the concept of red line? For if you're not, a red-lined city was a city where that was split, that had a red line down it. And the red line on the map in the city of Austin was I-35. Everything that was east of I-35, everything that was west of I-35 could only be deeded and owned. The property, residential property, could only be deeded and owned by persons who were white. Everything east.
In 75 still.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying 100 years ago. 100 years ago. And everything east of I-35 was minority owned and could be deeded and owned, minority owned. And that had been institutionalized for a long period of time. When that was deinstitutionalized, I'm putting in quotes, right? And the ability for persons of minority community to begin to own property in central Austin, and minority communities being able to move into central Austin, you began to see in the 60s and the 70s a movement of the white community out from central Austin into northwest Austin, predominantly out into Westlake, into Bee Cave. But it was upward, it was first westward and then northwestward, the northwestern corridor. This is known as White Flight. And that is what, if you look into where First Presbyterian Church is, the Mesa community, so just outside of what I call the Austin Beltway, and upwards to now Balcones, Spicewood area. This is all of the progression of what quote unquote white flag. So by 1975, this was, before 1975, this was just a speck of dust on the map. Then this became a community, and we planted the community. This was not a part of Austin. Spicewood Elementary School opened its doors literally this month 50 years ago. This is the beginning of 50-year anniversary for Spicewood Elementary School, and this month essentially is when Hope Presbyterian Church started a new worshiping community in the cafeteria of Spicewood Elementary School. Now, like 6 months later, we chartered officially and became a new church in the cafeteria, April 27th, 1975. But we started as a new worshiping community in the cafeteria this fall. So we're in our 50th year. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this was a coup. So if you look at the aerial view, and there's a picture of that in the hallway in the administrative office of Spicewood. This is just, it's like there's a school and nothing. And this was it has been predominantly a very expensive white neighborhood. That being said, up until 20 years ago, the ministry field of Hope Presbyterian Church, of most American churches, was within the 1.5 to 2 miles of where a church was. So you would plant a church in a neighborhood where it is, and that is where the ministry field was. Most folks would leave their homes and go to work somewhere, but they would come home and their community is their community. They would go to worship in their community, they would live in their community, they would socialize in their community, they would stay in their community on the weekends and the evenings, etc. Right? Up until about 20 or so years ago, you didn't have as much movement out into the world. But over the course of time, 25 years ago, now, especially in Texas, you know, we just go everywhere. I mean, we're everywhere. We get in our car and we go everywhere. I mean, we go everywhere. We drive 35 minutes just to go to IKEA to get Swedish meatballs and look at stuff, right? 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 I mean, we're crazy.
Now I know where I'm going.
Right? Right. Let's see, I'm looking around, trying to remember where people live. I know where you live. You drive how many minutes? You're the furthest.
Here,
You're
so
the
about
furthest
25
away.
minutes.
How much?
25, because I take 45, it would be more.
But you're the furthest mileage away from here, because I know where you live.
Yeah.
We get traffic,
I know.
sometimes.
But the mileage, she's the furthest mileage.
You live in here, Pflugerville.
Where do you live?
Yeah,
Oh,
look at me.
Oh, wow.
So round
That's
rock.
like
Dedication.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's not abnormal anymore, which would have been bizarre 30 years ago and certainly bizarre 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So and 5 years ago, before the pandemic, I was thinking about this and I brought it 5.5 years ago. As the summer of 2019, I asked the session, I said, how many of us currently serving on session live within 2 miles of the church? No one on session lived within 2 miles of the church. Everyone lived beyond 2 miles of the church currently serving. And that was not abnormal. And that is what set me up. This is a long setup, and you need to understand because it's not as much of our ministry field, but a lot of our attention and focus had been, you know, and our money and whatnot had been, how do we get the people who live within the 1 mile, 2 mile radius, you know, but that, you know, and, you know, how do we have these neighborhood communal things? Well, that's just not, you know, how do we keep doing the kind of outreach to things that worked 50 years ago? That's not the same as it is right now. And the demographics of our neighborhood around us just don't reflect a lot of where we are. So, such as if you look at the community of our neighborhood now, there is a significant amount of persons who are either Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, or if they are church going, predominantly they go to Hill Country Bible Church or non-denominational, et cetera, Catholic. So what I began to note in our demographics at Hope Presbyterian Church is a larger swell of our members come from Cedar Park. And then we started getting a lot of members that were coming even from Leander. And then I started wondering why, especially the spring of where the winter and spring of 2020 we started getting a lot of members from Leander. And folks who had been driving from Leander to downtown places of worship. For example, Kathy's one of them who live in Leander, but we're driving downtown to go to worship. And we're like, man, you know, prior to driving all the way downtown to go to worship, and I'm, you know, isn't there not any place up here? And this question of, is there not anywhere up here that is affirming that, you know, that I can feel like is home? So that led me to ask the question, well, and research, well, what is life like for persons in the LGBT community in Cedar Park, Leander, or the allies, and the idea of that in Cedar Park, Leander? COVID hit, derailed some. So this started asking me this. So the last 2.5 years for me has been a lot of intentional research, focusing in on this. Here's some of the things that I found. Out of Cedar Park, Leander, about 160,000 residents. Okay, there are about 160,000 residents in Cedar Park, Leander. What you have on page, don't get ahead of me here, right? I'm on page 2. What you have on page 2, on your bullet point number 5, I've given you Cedar Park Pride. Oh, dang it, I misspelled Leander. Leander Pride. Don't focus on Round Rock yet. Pride, Family Medicine, and Aesthetics, and Hotspot. Those 4 that I've listed right there. Cedar Park Pride, Leander Pride, Pride Family Medicine, Aesthetics, and Hotspot. To my knowledge, those are the only publicly affirming non-faith community resources in the 2 cities for persons in the LGBT community out of 160,000 people. Pride Family Medicine and Aesthetics is probably only 2-3 years old, I think. They're very clear. They're very clear about their mission and their values and their focus, and about who they serve and why they serve and what their mission is. They're at Lakeline in 1431. Hotspot, it's at New Hope and 183A, and it's a concert venue. It's outdoor. It's hip hop and happening, and it's predominantly, all kinds of concerts. And really, all the Queens and Wings drag brunch on the 4th Sunday of every month. I said supportive. I think it's remarkable, and I love the idea that they're not closed-doored to this, which for me means that they're supportive. There is a new, I think it's a new karaoke bar that just opened in the last half year. And there might be some coffee shops, but the public resources are very, there are no public, other than this for-profit business, Pride Family Medicine. There doesn't exist hardly anything. Well, there's just nothing. I've given you the list now. And that was woefully disappointing. And I have been researching. I have been looking. And that's heart sunken to me. And I have been asking. The other things that I've been asking for is, well, what about teenagers? And aside from and I've really done some deep diving into Leander ISD. And with the exception of one board member, Leander ISD has historically been very not accepting.
Yes.
With the exception of one board member, Leander ISD is a very safe and affirming board. The exception of one board member. The board members themselves are very affirming, very safe. The district itself might not be, but the board trustees are. It really depends on the school, and it really depends on the administrator of the school. And
most of them have a very minimal dress code, so we can wear what makes us feel comfortable as long as it's not offensive. So there's no gender anything that you need to do this. There's no uniforms. There's no you need to cover up because you're distracting people. It's really more of if we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, or if there's somebody talking to you, don't have your hood up, don't have hats on, stuff like that. But mostly we don't have dress codes. That's one thing that I can speak for that I know is very inclusive.
One of the I've met with 2 trustees, and what they've shared with me have been that depending on the school, some administrators may allow a teacher to have a pride sticker available in their room. Some administrators may not allow for a pride sticker. Meaning, just a flair to allow a student to know, okay, this is a safe teacher, etc. So it really depends. And some administrators may be a little more protective. and of queer students, some maybe very protective, some maybe less protective. And, you know, overall, there is a balance of school safety, yes. It's growing. It's certainly better today than it was 5 years ago, and better 5 years ago than it was 10 years ago. And especially the board itself is making great strides. Yes, sir.
Except for this next thing that they do that really bugs me. They need to quit censoring books in their library.
Let me get back to that. Let me get back. And we're gonna, I can't take it all on today.
That's Texas.
I can't take it all on today. And I chose not to get into the Texas stuff today. So I'm starting to whittling my way down. So I put these links down here and I would love, and I emailed all this out. Go to their Facebooks, click the Facebook, be on Facebook and follow them. We started becoming a sponsor with Round Rock Pride several years ago and have done so annually. We're an annual vendor, sponsor, not vendor. We're an annual sponsor at Round Rock Pride, well outside of our ministry field, and will continue to do so until such time that Leander and Cedar Park Pride catch up to the level that Round Rock Pride, which is a very well organized, very robust program. Cedar Park and Leander are nowhere near that yet. And I'm going to talk, don't let me forget, I'm going to talk more about Cedar Park and Leander. We'll come back around to that. So the last thing I put down there is gaychurch.org, and you can go there and find more information. You can share that with friends and family, colleagues who live well beyond where we are. They can put in their zip code. You can find this is a organization that screens and vets worship places of worship and creates the directory. We're listed now. I filled out and we were vetted, and we're listed. And so and they maintain an affirming, not just we welcome all. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but truly affirming directory of churches, and so please feel free to share that with your family and with friends.
Caleb.
And it explains what that's an acronym for the foundation.
Oh.
So let me tell you the next part. This is now I wanted to look at my area of specialty, which is ground time, which is faith tradition and faith formation in the ministry field. And my question was, well, like if I were a member of the LGBTQIA community living in Cedar Park, Leander, where would I was a person of faith, where would I go to worship? So let's start with Williamson County. Williamson County is a very large county, right? It incorporates Georgetown, big part of Round Rock, goes way on up north into Liberty Hill. I mean, it's a big area, right? We're only a portion of it. Williamson County has always been like, it's so funny because Travis County has always been like this blueberry and the tomato soup of Texas, right? And like the sole blueberry in the tomato soup of Texas. And I think it was the 2020 election, Williamson turned blue.
Yes.
I mean, like earth shattering, like the reddest county in the world, you know, turned blue, you know, like a documentary, historically documented corrupt county of Williamson County. Blue. What the hell's going on in this world? Like, you know, and I mean, like, it didn't like, you know, things didn't just like get changed overnight, but like something's happening here. Just I'm like, okay, well, you know, the board, I mean, the LISD board was not the greatest, and was very not healthy. And it is now a much healthier board. Leander City Council, not a healthy council by a damn sight. Very much a healthy council now. Cedar Park Council, very much a healthy council now. What is going on in this world? I don't know, but yay!
Round
so-
Talrico.
And so,
I go
um,
to church with him.
uh,
I'm sorry, not church, to school with him.
yes,
Okay.
so then I'm thinking like, okay, well, if you're, all right, for that voters, that means there must be a swell of persons. So where are these persons, if they are persons of faith, where would they be going to worship other than people who are driving downtown? So I'm questioning this. I'm like, well, where would these put you? So I've been here for 11 years, I don't know. Where are my colleagues? So how would I go to find this out? Man, lo and behold, thanks be to God, to Jehovah's Witness. I don't know how this happened, but somehow or other, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm in a one-off, randomly got invited to a meeting with some people of all kinds of variations of faith, including Jehovah's Witness, and what Jehovah's Witness like. Well, part of my mission here has been making a directory of all the faith traditions in Williamson County, and have an Excel spreadsheet of every faith community, the faith leader, email, Facebook, I mean, the whole shebang.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, mind if I get in on some of that? He's like, oh, sure, what's your email? I was like, within 5 minutes, I had the directory of the entirety of Cedar Park of every faith community from this guy's like year and a half research. Baby, at my fingertips, mail merge accessible, cell phones, emails, baby, data research. Oh, baby. Oh, nerd alert. So, what does a nerd like me do? Research. So I said, all right, let's take this research and plug it in. So I start going to all these websites of Cedar Park, narrow it down, Cedar Park, Leander, that's my question. And now let's talk about the difference between a welcoming church and an affirming church. A welcoming church says we welcome all. Hence our question from a few weeks ago, invite all to worship God versus we affirm all and the LGBTQIA members, LGBTQIA plus persons in membership, leadership, and marriage. Big difference between invite all. And so, and we're clear about that on our website, which is what gaychurch.org is looking for. Is it clear? Is it obvious? They're not looking for a bait and switch. They want looking for, is it clear? Is it obvious? So I start going to there's 90, I think there's like 90 faith communities that are in and around basically Cedar Park, Leander. There's 90 faith communities, predominantly Christian, 90. And I'm going to as many of those websites as possible. And of them, of the 90, there are only, here they are. I'm on page 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that are clearly affirming. There are only 9 that are clearly affirming. So I threw all this up in a Google sheet, and Linus and Louise, you got that handout in front of you. So if you're looking at I'm looking at the one that has only the blue dots. Okay, the page that is only the blue dots. I want you to track with me, okay? I want to explain the logic. You're looking at the page that is only the blue dots. Essentially, what you have on the very western border is this one blue dot. It's Christ Episcopal Church. It's on the very southwestern border of Cedar Park. On the very southwestern border of Cedar Park is Christ Episcopal Church. On the right side, you have two blue dots. Those are technically in Round Rock. That's Round Rock Presbyterian Church and St. Julian of Norwich Episcopal Church. Put an asterisk there. The others, that small bunching there, those are either on 1431 or Hope Presbyterian Church, which is the southern border of Cedar Park. What did I say?
1430.
I meant 620.
Christ is on 1430.
And then 620, excuse me. Okay. Now, from that bunching on the southern border of Cedar Park on 620, all the way to Liberty Hill, there are, in this one Christ Episcopal on the southwestern border of Cedar Park, there are, out of 90 places of worship, there are no places of worship that are affirming for persons in the LGBTQIA community for 160,000 residents. Now, I know that there is one place that is affirming in Liberty Hill, which is why I know that there's at least one place in Liberty Hill. There's at least one place in Liberty Hill.
There's one out in Hutto.
That's going,
Wait.
Yeah, I know, it's out of the way.
that's in, and so, that to me was striking, and it fit with that other non-faith research that I had noticed, right? Which was there's the Pride Aesthetics and Medicine and Hotspot. Now, there is one other for-profit business that I known is LGBTQIA owned, and I've met with the owners. But they do not reflect it on their website. And that's probably for a very clear purpose, because they want business and they're a very successful business. They don't reflect it on their website, and that's fair. And I didn't put them on the handout because they don't reflect it on their business. But other than those three, that's a huge swath. Now, look at the next page with all the red dots. So then I put all the red dots in. This is essentially the big spattering of all of the other churches, right? A huge swell where all of the other, 82 faith communities are, so to speak. They kind of fill in the gaps there.
Are these other word welcoming churches or
No. Now, I am going to go back to page 3 now. Now, recently, on some of these churches I want to talk about, out of the 9 places of worship, there are 13 faith leaders. Here's the listing of them. And I included the 3 of us who are here, Pastor John, Pastor Crystal, and myself. Some of us are full-time, some of us are part-time, etc. If you see the one on Church of the Savior on Little Elm, this is right in the middle of the grouping there in Cedar Park. If you know where Hill Country Bible Church is, okay, now, huh?
Where is it?
No, Hill Country.
Wow, where's what?
This church.
It's really, it's hard to see, but it's essentially across the street from Hill Country Bible Church. And they were on the news here just recently, Church of the Savior was, because on Trans Day Visibility, they put out a pride flag on their one street church sign that's on the street, and they put out a flag, progressive pride flag, and it had been stolen. So they put out another flag, which had been stolen. They put out a third flag, but this time they put out a ring cam And they had called the news. The news had recorded it, and it had made the news and all this, that, and the other, and it got stolen. They put it out a fourth time, and they had video of it, of course. This time they put an Apple tag in it, and they tracked it into a gated community, not too far from where you live. But they couldn't get into the gated community because it's a gated community. And, no, I don't want to say that because I'm colleagues with I've been in collegial relationship with a lot of those red dots. I've been in for 8 years. I've been in a collegial relationship with a lot of those red dots. I've been in collegial relationships with. I used to meet monthly with a huge number of those red dots for the last 7 years. I'm on the emailing list with a lot of those red dots. And until this last January, which I organized and have formed the brand new, still forming, the Cedar Park Leander Faith Leaders Alliance. And we're still trying to find our footing, but this is the 13 of us beginning to meet on a regular basis. And I presented the findings back to them and saying, you know, the city is without our voice. And we have something to say that is counter to the 90 dots, the 80 dots. And there is a message to proclaim that is something that is counter to the 80 red dots. And there are people who are needing to hear it. And the red dots don't have to be the ones who suck up all the air in the room. And how can we work together and provide resources for a community that doesn't have the resources? So some of the things that we've identified are, especially when it comes to teens, is like if you were to go into the city of Austin, you know, Out Youth is there, and there are resource centers where adults who are in the LGBT community, teens, and can go to, like brick and mortar resources where people can turn. There's nowhere, there's no place in Cedar Park, Leander. It doesn't exist, and that scares the hell out of me. And so this team has said, you know, let us forget that, you know, our places of worship can serve as these resources, even if we're on the southern perimeter, you know, even if we're on the outskirts. So this is us trying to find our footing. One of the things that we've done so far is, and this is a stroke of brilliance, the superintendent of Leander ISD has put together a faith leaders council, sub-council. I don't know what he's called them. And he started this 2.5 years ago. I don't know when he started this. This is brilliant. And it has always been 35, 40 white evangelical men. I got invited to it for the first time October of last year, and Rabbi Reese and Pastor Joanna and I were the only 3 off of this list that were there, and I was like, oh my Lord. So this group here has made a commitment that we will attend every one of those LISD meetings that we're invited to. And we just got the next 9-month lineup to ensure that we're there and that we will participate in the conversation. We don't have any voting power. We don't have any agency, but the superintendent brings topics before us and allows us to participate in engagement and conversation. And it's brilliant, and I love it. And he's a fabulous superintendent. Church of St. Julian of Norwich in 2 weeks is moving to Cedar Park. They're going to be off of Palmer and Brushy Creek in that area. So they're actually moving into Cedar Park, but still southeast perimeter of Cedar Park. And it's the other thing, I'm the only one out of all of these people who live in Cedar Park or Leander. None of the rest of them live in Cedar Park or Leander. So that leads us to the thing that brings me full circle back to what I talked to Session about back in January, which is changing my job description, which is us focusing our attention more on the city of Cedar Park. And if our mission ministry field is not as much as this neighborhood, and our new neighborhood is the city of Cedar Park, where a predominant number of our members are, and especially Leander, then our focus is there. And my recommendation to the session was reallocating a significant portion of my time to be engaged purposefully into the community, and allocating more of my time resources in the community on a regular basis, whether that's engaging with city council, engaging with civic organizations and whatnot, and building relationships, not solo, but with members of the church partnered with me and whatnot. So to that end, I had the opportunity, was invited to offer in June, the city council had a pride proclamation that they had written and declared. I was offered the opportunity to lead the opening prayer that day, and got to meet the Cedar Park Pride leaders. And it's still being worked out, but I think within the next week or two, I'll end up with the leadership position for Cedar Park Pride, which I'm pretty excited about. With Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce, there is a program that I've been selected for that I'll be a part of the next year, which will have me in touch with the civic leaders of the city, as well as business leaders in the city as well. So I'll be embedding myself into the city over the next year, and I'm also looking for partners in that endeavor as well. So I would hope, and I'm going to wrap myself up here, that if any of this is of any interest to you, and y'all live anywhere close by or whatnot, there just doesn't exist a whole lot of organized anything right now, because there isn't anything. And our prayer for concern is, how do we get there? And I'm hoping that there is definitely those who are marched who have been so hurt from the church, and how then do we help to overcome and to proclaim the message of a loving God to a community where the only message that they're continuously hearing is a message of abomination and alienation and malignment and exile. So that is my thoughts with regard to Cedar Park Leander mission field going forward. Questions, thoughts, comments, objections?
I just was gonna say, I love that, and I appreciate you doing that. My daughter lives in a gated community where Osage is, you know where that is? There are a lot of people in there, a lot of her friends who don't go to church, but are very inclusive. I don't know how to present it. I just think this is a great.
Are there within the ACC community, Austin Community College? We have 2 campuses in that area. So do they have groups that meet that could engage with? That you've got, that's a community college, so it's not just regular college aides.
Right.
But I'm wondering if I have a connection with.
Never heard of it. I mean, I've never even thought about it. Tesla.
I know that you did a bunch of this research on all of these faith communities yourself. But do you know if there's any sort of, either website or resource that people can find that points to affirming, and welcoming, houses of faith wherever they live in like the US or?
Yeah, so that page, daychurch.org, that's what you need to send your friends.
Oh, that's not just for Austin area.
Oh,
that's for-
that's, I think it's international as well.
Oh, wow.
It's I
I
apologize. I'm sorry, gaychurch.org is at least US.
Wow. Okay.
I apologize. Yes, gaychurch.org is at least US. Now, if you were to put in 78613, which is where we are, you're only going to see 2 of these 9 churches
So
listed.
it's not as deep of a dive into.
These-
churches.
Well, no, it's the churches themselves would have to apply, right?
Okay, so it's not like.
They don't go, that organization doesn't go scouting. The churches themselves need to apply.
Alright.
But
But
that'll
it's-
at least give them a start. Yeah, and I'd also say too that it's one of my favorite things to do is to scout out places of worship for anybody. So I've made that offer 1,000 times, which is if you, I don't care if you're living in Nebraska or Florida or California, you know, if you're interested in a place of worship, send me the webpage, I'll scout it out for you. So for anybody, it's one of my favorite things. Kate knows.
Yes.
I love doing that, right?
So I want to thank you and this congregation for doing this. As you guys know me now through this class, that I've struggled with these issues my whole life. For a person like me, we want this change to be instant, but that's unrealistic because it took us a long time to get here. It's very painful for a person like me to go to a church that says they're welcoming, just to find out that they just pull you in. And then there's all these, well, you can do this, but you can never be an elder type thing. So I wanted to thank this congregation because this work is hard. There's lots and lots of traditions that have taken lots and lots of time to get to where we are today. But you all deserve a pat on the back because this is not easy, but you make a difference for people like me. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll respond to that and send thank you. Full stop. Period. Thank you. And I'll respond to that and say that John and I were talking the other day, and Pastor John and I were talking the other day, and he had said something affirming, which I appreciated. And my response was something I had said in one of my sermons at a keynote this summer for the youth program that I did. And that is that one of the expressions I just detest and loathe is this expression. You've heard it. He pulls himself up by his bootstraps.
Yes, I can't stand it.
So that is an old English expression. It comes from England and it's 150 or so years old. And in its context and its originality, he's a man who pulls himself up by his bootstraps. In its originality, was meant as a sarcastic jab. It was meant as a sarcastic jab. And the only way to understand that is for me to model it. So forgive me for looking like the fool that I'm about to look like. But it's the only way for you to understand why it's such a foolish statement. Because if I actually pull this off, then it's going to be a miracle. I am now going to pull myself up by my bootstraps, which means I'm going to lift myself up off the ground. I'm going to pull myself up off the ground 3 feet. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. I got my ready. 1, 2, 3. You can't do it. I can't do it. Be someone who pulls himself up by his bootstraps, right? It's a sarcastic, foolish insult, right? That is what it has always meant. Now, what it has become is an embrace of independence, right? I'm a man, I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps, right? So it's this idea that I did it alone. I didn't need anybody else. I don't need anybody else. And it hurts me to hear someone say that because it just sounds so ignorant and so silly. But theologically, it's just so wrong. Practically, it's just so wrong. Someone taught you to speak. Someone taught you to read. Someone taught you to put your arm through the armhole of your shirt, right? Right? You know, someone cut your hair, right? You know, we all got here somehow. Someone paved the road for you to drive your car on, right? Someone, you know, put a satellite in the, you know, for you to use a cell phone, right? So no one does anything alone. We are first person plural people, we, us, our. Okay, so it's just dumb. That being said, back to what you were saying. We don't do this alone. And we keep working on it. So it is a partnership. It is something that we keep working on together. And we don't go it alone. We never go it alone. And the more that we can keep casting the net, the more that we can keep expanding the radius and bringing folks into the conversation in good faith, humility, the more that we can humble ourselves, the more that we can increase our relationships, the more that we can allow some of our covenants of presence, right, to welcome discomfort, to welcome dislocation, to embrace wonder and curiosity, right? The more that we can grow and understand the beauty of God, but we don't do it alone. And so when we have this, right, you know, that's when I make my mistakes, and I am still making mistakes. I am still getting words wrong. I'm still saying the wrong things. I'm still flubbing up, right? Is when I'm still hoping for your grace, and your forgiveness, and your patience with me. And at the same time, you know, that's why the word here, strive, was so important. We're all still striving. And but we're doing it together, that community part. So we don't do it alone. We don't pull ourselves up on our bootstraps. Makes sense? Okay, final word.
Yeah, final word. This side of 20 years ago, when I was 15, if you had told me that I would be sitting in a church as an out lesbian going to seminary, I would have thought that that was the coolest joke that you could possibly say to me. I wanted that more than anything. And I never thought it was going to happen. So what I will say is that it's working. I got to come home. And I'm really glad I'm here. Wait. That's all.
I love you.
Thanks. No, we're glad to hear you. Thank you. My girlfriend bought me this dress with pockets. Because I always lose my keys.
Linus, Luis, y'all want to add anything before we sign off?
Other than you're amazing, Josh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Buddy, all I got is one word for you. Alamara.
Yep, Alamara.
All right, let's get our closing prayer in. All right. Questioning God. As we leave, teach us to love with questions and doubts. Let us release the compulsion to find immediate answers and trust the questions to guide us towards greater understanding. May we embrace the unknown with faith, knowing that you are with us in our search. In Jesus' name we pray. All right, bye, con Dios, and we'll see you all next weekend.